Russell Brand was smeared. I showed you he had two different articles in the same day in the Independent that smeared him as a cult leader, as conspiracy theorist, and a guy who spreads misinformation. They never showed you one member of his cult or why they called him a cult. They never showed you one thing he ever said that was wrong, and they never showed whatever misinformation they. So he's going to respond, and I thought his response was really eloquent in a lot of ways. So they came after him because of a lot of things. It all started when he told the truth about Russiagate. That's when it really started.
You know, it was more gracious than we were to them.
Yes.
It was a lot more like...
But the most recent thing that he did was he told the truth about the truckers and Justin Trudeau being a fascist. And they came at him. And so watch this. This is really good.
The establishment and the mainstream media are coming for me and coming for this channel, saying I'm a conspiracy theorist, a right-wing nut, and an anti-vaxxer. If you don't think that I'm those things, and I don't think that I'm those things, could there be any other reason why the mainstream media and establishment want to shut down open discourse and dissent? Hello there, you 5.2 million awakening wonders. Glory unto thee. Let's stay awake. Let's stay focused. Let's stay conscious. Let's stay in the conversation. Obviously, today I'm talking to you about something personal. There's been a spate of articles about me saying I'm right-wing, I'm a conspiracy theorist, I'm the new Joe Rogan. Quite like that one. Joe Rogan is a triumphant voice in a difficult space. I love Joe Rogan. I won't deny that. So what could be the reason behind it? The initial articles have been provoked by a video we did about Justin Trudeau saying that his invocation of the Emergency Act and refusal to rescind it entirely in case of certain financial components against peaceful trucker protests smacks of the kind of authoritarianism that might diminish his right to overtly condemn anti-democratic actions elsewhere. That's what we said. Is that a problem to you that I said that? Does that seem reasonable? I don't know. You know, we'll work it out. Comments below. Stay to the end of the video because there's a lot of complexity. Earlier in the history of this channel, we've been accused of being anti-vax simply for saying unvaccinated people might have rights. You know, that's been another thing. We talked about the Wuhan lab leak theory. Well, that seems to be an evolving situation too. We're going to get into it in depth. We're going to look at some of the accusations and the publications that have made those accusations to make sure that they're squeaky clean. But before that, I want to let you know that I'm on tour and I want you to come see me live.
So he's on tour just like I'm on tour, and I'll be at the Houston Improv on Tuesday. If they'll sell you a ticket. If they'll sell you a ticket, who knows? Go to the Houston Improv, try to buy a single ticket, see if they'll do it. They're trying to make people buy tickets in bulk of 6. But I think you can buy one ticket now. But if you want to buy a VIP ticket, that's still going to be hard. You should call them and ask them at the Improv in Houston if I can buy a VIP ticket. They're not selling tickets. I've never worked at a club that wouldn't sell tickets when people wanted to buy them. But that's what they're doing at the Improv in Houston. So good luck. I'll see you there, though, this Tuesday. Okay. That's the 22nd of March. Okay, now, so those were some pretty good points. He makes some more good points.
They're coming for me. As you know, the point of this channel is to have an open conversation. And much of what we do is about critiquing news, analysing the type of content you get in the mainstream media or the corporate media or however you refer to it, looking at whether or not there's an agenda at play, the diminishing of complexity. There's lots of things we look at. So that's what the point of this channel is. We don't claim to be a news channel. We're not sending out journalists and going, oh my God, what's happening over there? That's not what we're doing. We're looking at news and analysing news. That's what we're doing, just to be clear. So we're not claiming to be a news channel. So like the idea of misinformation, this is opinion. This is obviously my opinion. We check our sources. We never say anything that can't be backed up. And you'll be interested to know that in the many articles of criticism of this channel and what we do here, no one is able to say this thing. For example,
no one is able to say, this is what he said. What has he said wrong? What is he getting wrong? They can't tell you. Okay, so here we go.
Let's just say the anti-vax thing. You know, like Russell Brand is anti-vax. I've never said that I'm anti-vax. What I've said is that perhaps people that are reluctant to become vaccinated shouldn't be treated as criminals, condemned, and treated as social pariahs. One reason being that there seems to be an enormous crossover with people that are poor, people that are from non-majority populations in the country, i.e. people from ethnic minorities. There seem to be a large number of unvaccinated people that have reason to be mistrustful of the government and big corporations like Big Pharma. There seem to be a number of reasons to be cynical. In fact, a recent study published in some of the very publications that have leveled criticism at me recently revealed that Johnson & Johnson did a study that showed that natural immunity plus less vaccines than they originally suggested could be more effective than the number of vaccines they originally suggested. And remember, this is an ongoing situation, so who knows what permutations may come elsewhere. And one of the main things we're criticising is this attitude of certainty and condemnation that's continually applied to situations that are clearly changing and shifting. I'm not in the business of telling you stuff that ain't true. You've got enough people doing that without me joining in. I'm trying my best as a flawed and fallible person to be engaged with you in an open discourse so we can learn together. That's why it's important you stay with me to the end. It's important that you subscribe to this channel so that we can keep this conversation going together. Now let's have a deeper look at this story.
So that was all very well said. Now, I've told you before, as soon as you actually stand up to the status quo and you will go against the establishment and you get to the left of the Democratic Party, they immediately call you a conspiracy theorist, a sexist, a white supremacist, and you're alt-right. You're a right-winger. They've done all those things to him, all those things to Glenn Greenwald, all those things to me. They do it to people at the gray zone. They do it to Matt Taibbi. Anybody who gets out in front to the left of the establishment, which is the Democratic Party and MSNBC and CNN, that's the game. They've done it to me. That's why I'm called the leader of the dirtbag left. Well, I'll take it. I am.
You're in the right wing now. I don't know if you know.
Like, I am right wing now.
Anything to the left of the not left here is right.
That's right.
What the next direction when you go for the left is right.
If you're not for Nazis, you're a right winger. Right? Because if you're not for Nazis in Ukraine, you're some kind of right winger.
Well, the main thing is you don't get to pick. You know, all these people are naive that think you get to pick what you are. You'll be told.
You'll be told.
Don't worry.
Don't worry.
It's our job to tell you who you are.
The woke people know what you are, and they're going to tell you. He's got more to say, by the way. You want to hear it? Here we go.
One of the newspapers, you probably haven't heard of it, it's a British newspaper called, ironically, The Independent. The newspaper that calls itself The Independent is possibly up to 50% funded by the Saudi Arabian state. A newspaper that calls itself The Independent is criticising this channel and its content for being somehow duplicitous and conspiratorial. Well, I'm not sure that they're in a great position to make those kind of remarks and to make those kind of observations. If you're called The Independent and you're funded by the Saudi Arabian state, you ain't even got past the title without lying. So, just a few facts, just to make sure
You call yourself The Independent and you're funded by Saudi Arabia 50%. You haven't even got past the title. It's bullshit.
The Saudi pendant?
I'm really trying to figure out how to talk like him. Sometimes he pronounces the T's and sometimes he doesn't. Like when he says Ottawa, he says Awa. He doesn't say Ottawa, Awa. Right. He doesn't say it.
Tuesday is like choose. You have to say it, chew.
Yeah. Like, but anyway, all right, back to his content. Here.
Making this stuff up. Sultan Mohammed Abul Jadayel owns a stake of between 25% and 50% in Independent Digital News and Media, the holding company of The Independent, according to filings at Companies House. Former Culture Secretary Jeremy Wright warned that the ultimate investor may have strong links to the Saudi Arabian state, raising fears that a foreign government may have gained influence over the news direction of two major British publications. Around 60% of The Independent's revenue is derived from advertising, 15% encompasses new product development and digital services, including ad sales, data and technology support. You know, because we've done it before, that the mainstream media channels in the United States make a significant amount of their money from tracking your data, bundling your data, and selling your data. That's not contested. That's how the media operates.
So he says United States, but then he says data. Data. So he doesn't say the T. Is the T in states? This is not important. Here we go.
Aside from their conventional funding through advertising model. So I think it's important, isn't it, that you understand where this information comes from. Major media corporations increasingly rely on a vast ecosystem of privacy violations, even as the public relies on them to report it. News sites' user tracking has only gotten more extreme. In 2020, a study published by Ghostery, a company that provides tools to block third-party data collection, found that news websites contain the most trackers globally, more than business, banking, entertainment, or even porn. So you're more likely to be tracked by looking at legacy media sites than you are if you looked at a porn site or an entertainment site. So how are you going to get honest, independent reporting from those guys? And it sort of makes sense, doesn't it, that they would be threatened by any other source of information, particularly if that source of information is open about our own fallibility, willing to be mutable and to change the conversation as new information comes available. No ties at all to giant business corporations, although I recognize we're on a big tech platform and we have an ad revenue model so that we could pay staff and run a business and it exists in the real world. That is something that we do. We're clear about that. We want to be part of an open conversation with you. We want to provide alternative narratives, and not only provide the narratives, invite you to create the narratives with us. Because do you know one thing I know? I don't know what's best. I've made a lot of mistakes. I've been wrong many times, but I'm beginning to think I'm right about this. The mainstream media is not your friend. The culture is not your friend. The government is not your friend. Big business is not your friend. They are operating collegiately in unison to create a set of systems that are beneficial to them and disadvantage you. The biggest threat to their power comes from unionization and mobilization of large groups of people. They're so nervous about it. They're so aggressive about it. They're so protective about it. It makes me think that they've got an agenda. The video that's got them all.
So that's a big one right there when he says they're afraid of people coming together and realize, and that, go ahead, Kurt.
Oh, he should have called his video, "I'm the one that Brian Stelter warned you about."
But that's so, what was he just saying?
About coming together is a thing that scares them. Of course.
So now so you realize that when I reached out to that libertarian gun guy, who calls himself a Boogaloo boy, which is totally different than Proud Boys. People don't know that. When I reached out to him to find common ground, like he was pro-LGBTQ, he was pro-Black Lives Matter, he was anti-war, anti-Trump, and anti-cop. And I'm like, I think we agree on like 5 out of the 10 major issues. I think we could work together. When I did that, when I reached out, that was when, when I trended on Twitter for 3 days straight because of all the fucking bots hating me and all the shit libs hating me on that.
They've been designated. I watched the people argue about that, and it was all like, it's ridiculous that you would let this person tell you what they think and not just listen to what we've already agreed they think.
Yeah, I was like, no, I want to hear exactly. So I didn't watch any of the debate about this on Twitter. When I trend on Twitter, I stay off Twitter because it's not good.
Yeah, right.
And not because of the people I don't know saying things. It's because the people I know. I'd rather not know the people who know me who are saying stupid, ridiculous shit about me. It's just stupid, and they're just assholes. And if they had something to say about me and they have my phone number, they should use my phone number. But no, I think I'll go in public and say it first. Like, what
now
the
you
fuck?
Want them to platform you?
Yeah, right. It's just crazy. But that is the biggest threat for the people on the left and so-called right to realize that we have a lot in common and we have a common enemy, which is the establishment. And they can't. And he's right. That freaks them out more than anything ever. And that's why they have to shit on people. And that's why the People's Party gets extra scrutiny and shit on and smeared. And because they're trying to bring the left and right together. Okay.
Well, that could cause a prison riot.
Heated up and cross is one we made about Justin Trudeau and Justin Trudeau's introduction of emergency powers to shut down trucker protests.
So this was the video that he thinks is what started it all. And I think so too. Well, I think it started before when I said he told the truth about Russiagate. Mm-hmm. But they showed this video at the head of one of the hit pieces on him in The Independent, his video talking about Justin Trudeau. So I think he's correct about that. This really was what got them to go on a smear fest against him.
which were largely peaceful, which we said on this channel, that if you shut down peaceful protest, what you're essentially doing is trying to control dissent. Now, look at the next level. If someone points that out, you try to shut down that person.
Isn't that amazing?
You've got to stamp it out like whack-a-mole. Like the old woman that swallowed a fly. You've got to swallow a frog and an horse and a cat and a cow to just prevent the truth from getting out. That these people are not what they claim to be. They're not running fair liberal democracies. They use the aesthetic of fair liberal democracies. They look presentable and they say nice things about being respectful and loving to people from a variety of communities, as we absolutely must be if we're ever to build a decent and better world. But when you have a centralized state, centralized corporate control, centralized dominator culture media, we don't have the opportunity to build these communities. All we pointed out is that Trudeau's introduction of emergency measures to shut down largely peaceful protests in Ottawa was at odds with the kind of democratic principles he was espousing when critiquing Russia's horrific actions in Ukraine. Let's note, for example, as Chrystia Freeland pointed out, that the aspect of the emergency measures that allows the Canadian government to freeze financial assets remains in place still. An advance on this argument is that in Canadian Parliament, they are now themselves investigating the introduction of those measures and whether or not it was anti-democratic. On Monday, a joint committee of Canada's Parliament officially launched an inquiry into the Trudeau government's actions against the Freedom Convoy civil liberties protesters. The unprecedented inquiry will look into allegations that the Trudeau government violated protesters' charters' rights when they arrested and detained them without charge, as well as the extreme actions of freezing bank accounts of protesters. Now, some of you might say, well, that is good, because that's an indication that there is democracy in Canada because they're investigating those actions. And I would agree. That is a good sign, isn't it? Because it's pretty bad that it happened, but at least there's being an investigation. But remember, then we have to look at, does the investigation lead to what? A revocation of those powers, someone being fined, a meaningful change in democracy, or does it become something that's a phatic exercise that's ultimately theatrical, that don't change anything? We don't know that yet. I've got my suspicions. The committee is made up of several Liberal Party and...
I mean, I know it is.
Yes.
Why would you need to It's like investigating why somebody likes Joe Rogan. Why would you need to have you just saw it happen.
Yep. So he's talking about how even the Parliament is investigating what happened. So everybody knows that the civil liberties, there was a woman who's the head of the First Nation. She's what they call, we call Native Americans. They're called First Nation in Canada. And she was a chief of one of those tribes. And she's
Ukrainian, I think, isn't she?
And she was against she had a lot of concerns about this too. And so here, watch what he says.
But what I think is worth observing is the way that our democracies are altering, the way that our reporting on democracy is altering, the way that conversation is being closed down. What it seems like to me is that for a number of varying reasons, whether it's anti-fascist or anti-this or anti-that, conversation is being shut down. The ability to communicate is being shut down. The ability to criticize power is being taken away. The Emergencies Act is a piece of legislation that was passed in... So now he goes on to talk about I thought that was great. It does seem
really
like...
great.
Yeah. It seems like they want to shut down because that's what they're doing. So here he is. He wraps it up with this. This is also great.
This standard has not been met. The Emergencies Act can...
So he shows the Wall Street Journal. They're reporting on how when Trudeau implemented the Emergency Powers Act, how the civil rights organizations in Canada screamed about it.
Be invoked when a situation seriously threatens the ability of the government of Canada to preserve the sovereignty, security and territorial integrity of Canada, and when the situation cannot be effectively dealt with under any other law of Canada. That's the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. We've already heard from the leader of the First Nations, and in their own parliament there's an inquiry. So evidently there is good reason to suspect that undemocratic action took place in Canada, and that is all I said. And for that, I am labelled a conspiracy theorist, charged with being a right-wing person. I know some of you are right-wing people, and guess what? I don't mind what you believe in. I'm sure you believe stuff that I don't believe, and you know stuff I don't know. And perhaps together we will discover that we have more and more in common. And perhaps together we will start to realise that the mainstream media is not our friend, and that the government is not our friend, and that our culture is operating to keep us separated from one another. And we must continually look for opportunities to communicate openly and honestly, and become circumspect and indeed downright suspicious about the agenda of newspapers that call themselves The Independent, while they're owned, at least in significant part, by the Saudi Arabian state. Do your own research on how independent they're likely to be with that kind of alliance. But that's just what I think. What do you think? I might be wrong. I want your comments.
Boy, he sounds like a crazy cult leader.
I was going to say he sounds toxic.
Yeah, very. You can't have that kind of message.
That's not how you talk. These people are probably boogaloo boys. Don't tell them they might be right.
Don't tell them they have good ideas, that they know things that you don't, and that we all should come together because we have more in common.
We need to be more separated than ever before.
That is a message that actually does scare the establishment, and that's why they come at him, and that's why they come at anybody. Joe Rogan, same thing. They pretended he was a right-winger. Joe Rogan has been a lefty his whole life. He was raised by hippies, and he's never voted for a Republican in his life. Doesn't matter.
That's right-wing now. To be hippie-ish and we can all get along is considered right-wing.
It's considered right-wing, yeah. I know. So this is a remarkable. Great job by Russell Brand. I mean, I hate that he's so good because I'm in the same space that he is, and I wish I could. I mean, I have a gift for speaking extemporaneously, but he really fucking nailed it there, which is making me jealous. Go ahead, Kurt.
He really is the anti-Stelter. It really is like,
yes.
If you, on a chart, we're like, what's exactly the opposite on this chart, on this wheel? He's the exact opposite of that round, little, awful, disingenuous Eggman.
We're doing our live stand-up tour. We're going to Houston. We're going to Dallas. We're going to Los Angeles, Orlando, Tampa, Columbus, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Des Moines, Omaha, Kansas City, and more. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets and become a premium member. You get all our bonus stuff.